The integumentary system, the skin. To begin, we're going to look at the functions of the integumentary system. One of the functions is protection. Since your skin has an outer layer that is a stratified squamous epithelium, it's very effective in protecting you from friction. It also is a good defense against bacteria and viruses, so it's a physical boundary that inhibits the bacteria and viruses from moving to the inside of the body. It helps regulate body temperature. If you're hot, you sweat. If you're cold, you shiver, you get the goosebumps. Either way, it helps regulate body temperature. It also can synthesize vitamin D in the event that you are exposed to ultraviolet radiation. It gives you sensation. It knows when something's touching you, when something's burning you, when something's vibrating you, for example. We're going to look at the layers of the skin. The first layer is the epidermis. Epi means on top of, and dermis refers to the layer below it, called the dermis. So the epidermis is the outer layer of skin. The predominant cell type inside of the epidermis is something called a keratinocyte. Keratin is a protein, and remember that cyte refers to cell. So it's the predominant cell type, and it contains the protein keratin. We care about keratin because keratin is a very effective waterproofer, and in addition, it causes hardness of the cells. Your hair actually has more keratin in it than your skin does, and your nails have more keratin in them than your hair does. So the more keratin, the harder and more waterproof the tissue. When we look at the epidermis, the basal cells, or the cells that are located along the basement membrane, are alive. You may have heard in the past people say, well, your skin is dead. Not necessarily 100% true. The outer layer of skin is dead, but the basal cells are still alive. So those apical cells are dead, and as you move through your day, they slough off and you leave dust around your house. Another type of cell that you're going to find inside of the epidermis are melanocytes. Melanocytes are located at the basement membrane, and they're going to release a pigment called melanin. Melanin is the pigment that gives your skin its color. Everybody has about the same number of melanocytes in their body. It's just the amount of melanin that they produce that gives us the variation in our skin colors. Taking a look at this picture, at the very top, the first bracket indicates a part of the epidermis that's dead, so that's the apical part, and then down towards the bottom, you can see that there are some darker cells. Those cells are the melanocytes releasing the melanin granules, and this entire structure then would be the epidermis. The dermis is the layer of skin deep to the epidermis. So it's just one layer down. It's made up of dense connective tissue, and structurally it has a bunch of dermal papilla. This is a projection of the dermis up towards the epidermis. Inside of the dermal papilla, we have nerve endings and blood vessels. So we can start to feel pain and sensation, for example, through the dermal papilla, as well as if we should get cut and it goes down into the dermal papilla, we would bleed from that area. A blister then occurs when the dermis and the epidermis separate. So it's not really a good idea to pop a blister, because when you do, you remove the fluid that is kind of padding the dermis, and then as you can see, you would have your nerve endings and or blood vessels exposed, so you would feel pain from that, and additionally you may continue to bleed from that wound. You can also find hair inside of the dermis. Hair has a couple different regions. It has a shaft portion. That's the part that you see coming out of the skin, the part that you can cut, curl, do whatever you'd like with to style it. The root is the part down in the dermis from which the hair is going to grow. The shaft and the root are housed inside of a structure called the follicle. Taking a look at this picture, you can see at the top the epidermis is that first bracket, and if you were to separate, as they've done on the right-hand side of the picture, the epidermis from the dermis, there are some regions of the dermis that kind of stick up into the epidermis. Those are the dermal papilla. Additionally, you can see that there's some yellow nerve endings going up through the dermal papilla, as well as some blood vessels. Functionally, the dermal papilla are going to keep the epidermis from slipping off of the dermis. And additionally, it's the dermal papilla that give you your fingerprints. Other structures that you can find in the dermis at this point are the hair. So you can see the brown hairs in the dermis kind of sticking through the epidermis and leaving the skin. Other structures inside of the dermis would be the smooth muscle. The smooth muscle is actually attached to the hair follicle itself, which is why when you get the goosebumps, your hair stands up on end. That muscle is going to contract and again give you the goosebumps. You would also have some sebaceous glands inside of the dermis. Sebaceous glands release a material called sebum, which is kind of a greasy, waxy material. They do that into the hair follicle. So if you've ever gone a day or two or maybe even more without showering, you know how your hair gets really waxy and greasy up by the scalp? That's because of the sebum that's being released. It's there to nourish the hair and to kind of moisturize it. Although, we get up in the morning and jump in the shower and wash all of that sebum out. But then, we put conditioner in, which is moisturizing again. So really, the body's natural way of moisturizing the hair is by the sebum. Although it's kind of stinky. Sweat glands are another thing that we can find inside of the dermis, as well as blood vessels. So lots of blood supply going to the dermis so that the epithelial tissue that overlies the dermis can diffuse some of the nutrients and such from the underlying blood vessels. They also help to regulate the body temperature. So when you get hot, your blood vessels vasodilate, which means that they get bigger. You get more blood to the surface of your skin. It kind of takes on a little bit of a red color, and you would allow yourself to release some of that heat. If you were cold, on the flip side, those blood vessels would vasoconstrict. They would get smaller, keeping more of the blood to the interior of your body, and that's when you suffer from things like frostbite because you're not getting enough blood to the surface of your skin. Additionally, we have some sensory nerve endings, so feeling pain, feeling pressure, feeling vibration, all of those are going to be recognized through the dermis. Again, this picture shows you some of the glands you can see in yellow, kind of connecting into the hair follicle. The blue coily structure, or green maybe it is a sweat gland emptying onto the surface of the skin. You can see lots of blood vessels in red and blue, and lots of nerve endings in yellow.